So most people have kind of written off the Culling game as a bad and boring arc, saying that's too slow, nothing's happening, etc. And it really leads me to ask myself, is this true? Is the Culling games actually boring and worse than Shibuya? And I'm just gonna say it's not. I think the Culling game is as good as Shibuya was. Is it as good as Shibuya in terms of developing Yuji, which is the main character that revolves around Jujutsu Kaisen? Absolutely not, because it's an arc that focuses more on other characters in their development, in their battles, rather than Yuji being 70% of the arc, well, Yuji and Sukuna being 70% of the arc, and then the 30% being everybody else with a few cool moments. Now, everybody has cool moments. I think that's fine. Now, I think the Culling game was written very well. I think all fights were entertaining. All of the twists and climaxes were very great, and if not better than Shibuya's. There's just a lot of good things in this arc in general. Of course, there were lows, like there are lows in every arc, right? People compare it to Shibuya for obvious reasons, and this comparison has allowed me to deduce why so many people did not enjoy it in comparison to Shibuya. Simply put, the Shibuya incident was nearly complete by the time most anime watchers got into Jujutsu Kaisen. And let's be real, I did not see many people talking about Jujutsu Kaisen until the anime came out. So you can assume that most people had most of the Shibuya incident ready to go for them. They were able to read the whole thing ups and downs in one sitting. You got to see Sukuna go crazy, rampage on Mahoraga and Jogo, Mahito, everything all at once. It was already there for you. Whereas for the Culling games, most had to sit through the beginning parts, the build up to Higuruma, Yuta's fight week by week. We had a much slower experience of the Culling game, having to wait for chapters to come out weekly, whereas for Shibuya, 90% and up had the whole arc sitting there for them. And to me, this plays a huge difference in how you perceive an arc and how you enjoy it. Now let's take the biggest violator of this rule, which is the Moro arc from Dragon Ball Super. Now when the Moro saga was ongoing monthly for Dragon Ball Super, it was just unbearable. Everybody was irritated with it. Everybody was annoyed with the month by month chapters. It felt like nothing was happening. But when the arc finished and people were able to read it from beginning to end and see the whole thing for what it was, they came to enjoy it much more because they didn't have to sit through the monthly waits anymore for 40 pages. Now people consider this to be Dragon Ball Super's far and away best arc, which I absolutely agree. Now imagine having to sit through JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 3 week by week. You would not enjoy the series. You would lose your mind with how long it's taking to get to Dio. Let's be honest. Every single week we'd see masses of people crying and complaining on both Twitter and Reddit. That's the truth. Let's not argue. Come on now. But when you have that experience fully laid out for you and you have other people hyping it up for you, you stick through it. You know what I'm saying? Because for Part 3, it's very slow, but you know the ending's going to be worth it because you have the whole thing in front of you and it's critically acclaimed and praised and all that. It's a different experience. Like, come on now. If y'all had to sit through Yuji versus the Grasshopper for 2 weeks, y'all will not be hyping up the Shibuya incident like that. I'm sorry. But I'm not dragging down the Shibuya incident. It's really good. I love it. You know what I'm saying? I'm just pointing out the flaws in that. Nobody was hyped for Yuji versus the Grasshopper. But what I'm saying is the circumstances of you reading and digesting both of these arcs are completely different from one another. And in my opinion, once the Culling game is completely over, I suggest you reread all of it in its entirety. As of chapter 221, the Culling game is still not over yet, and we've had so many amazing chapters and moments within this arc. From Yuji's confession, to Yuta and Ryu's clash, to Hakari's explosive entrance against Kashimo, to Yuji breaking and snapping against Sukuna, the Culling game arc has been lit. All of these moments were amazing, and there were many great moments in between. Again, I just think this arc would be way more enjoyable if you were to reread it from beginning to end. The weekly format can make it very hard to digest series, and honestly, that's not completely the fault of the viewer. But to me, it personally feels as if people wanted the Culling game to have a bunch of massive bombshells and crazy cliffhangers dropped every week just lined up for them. Some 10 out of 10 masterpiece every single week. And honestly, that ain't it. That's how you kill a series, if anything. The Shibuya incident did not have 10 out of 10 chapters every single chapter. You just had the 10 out of 10 chapters lined up for you all in one sitting. You had all the best moments waiting for you. Now, this is where I would get into some instant gratification, delayed gratification type of talk, but I'll leave that for another time. My point is, for the Culling game, you had to sit through Yuji versus Helicopter Man and Helicopter Girl for a week, okay? Whereas for the Shibuya incident, all you had to do was tap your screen a few times and you'd be right past Nanami versus Haruto, okay? You would have to sit through a week for that. Imagine reading the whole Culling game and going through the Sendai Colony, Tokyo Colony 2, Yuji versus Sukuna, Yuki versus Kenjaku, all that in one sitting. You're gonna be like, the Culling game was crazy. Now, I'm going to talk about Yuki Tsukumo and all the complaints around her character and how she was handled for the Culling game arc. Her entire character is about sacrifice. Her introduction into the present day in the story was a debate about everybody sacrificing their energy to remove cursed spirits. And her exit from the story was literally her sacrificing herself to save Choso. And if that isn't enough, she ended up leaving the book for Yuji. Her final attack is literally the embodiment of sacrifice. Yuki did more than serve her purpose as a character. She lives on through Yuji, Choso, and Todo. I think it's fine that she was removed from the story very quickly, as it was already displayed that she's had a huge influence in Geto's descent to madness, which plays into so many arcs in the story. Yuki has had more influence over the story than the majority of the cast, and she's only had one fight, which this fight displayed almost all of her capabilities except for her domain expansion. Then, the outrage over Sumiki is just dumb. It's been established that she was a plot device since chapter 20, okay? I'm not sure what anybody was expecting out of her. I just don't get what this whole thing about female characters in Jujutsu Kaisen is about, because let's be real, if they got done like Ryu, if they were getting done like Yuji, getting shit on for 200 plus chapters without a real good power-up, getting written out of the story like Inumaki, getting written out of the story like Todo without even giving those characters true exposition, brought back from the dead to get smacked again like Naoya, instantly getting their life taken away from them and instantly being removed from the story and becoming a vessel like Megumi, y'all would be much more upset. Anyways, I'm just gonna wrap this up here. Reread this arc when it's finally completed, I guess when the story's over, as the weekly releases can really mess up an arc and how you perceive it. Reading an arc from start to finish is just a way different experience from reading it weekly. Anyways, if you took the time to listen to this, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.